The Harmonic Convergence Chapter 6 The Lunar Arrival. We all enjoyed familiarizing ourselves with these beautiful islands, harvesting native food, swimming, and processing our journey across vast oceans. And over time, we all regained our inner calm. We had not encountered any other surviving Lemurians, or any survivors at all. However, we were sure that some did survive. One evening, we lit a fire on the beach, and gathered together, we discussed how to proceed from here. The natural world has experienced so much devastation, said Maxim, and such an enormous loss of life that Gaia is in flux with broken timelines. Maxim paused. A tear ran down his cheek. And then he continued, most of the magnificent continent of Oceania has sunk beneath the oceans, with very little land remaining above sea level. Yes, agreed Dulkara, it has been devastating. What do you mean, broken timelines? Inquired Samira. In the past, said Maxim, even although it was harsh, there was a dominant collective timeline that gave stability. This has now disappeared. Yes, I said, the human being has been so mind-controlled. This creates fracturing because their minds are confused and in fear. Oh, I see, said Samira. And with the catastrophic earth changes and the enormous loss of life, the stability of the dominant frequency is even further fractured and in flux. These are uncertain and dangerous times for us all, said Sarah. As Oceania began to sink, continued Maxim, I felt in my heart that many of our friends and family in Lemuria would have relocated to Atlantis. They would have hoped, perhaps, to have found land and resources there. Our thoughts have been with them deeply, said Sarah, and we have all been wanting to know if they have perished or have survived but are suffering. I am wondering, said Maxim, if we should return to Atlantis. I, for one, would like to know what is happening there and who is in need of our help. However, I also know that we have endured tumultuous times, and we are, probably, all still exhausted. I will return to Atlantis, Maxim, I said reassuringly. Maxim once again looked into our eyes, searching for our feelings and thoughts about returning to Atlantis. We all gave Maxim a nod and a smile, and then we broke into laughter, for there was a part of us that loved to adventure, and an idyllic life in the islands was not ultimately satisfying. I can see that you all agree, he said. That is wonderful. Thank you. When would you like to set sail? Asked Dulkara.
Actually, began Cyndriella.
I am sure there is another way to journey to Atlantis. We turned our attention towards Cyndriella. What other way could there possibly be? Inquired Sarah. I have been dreaming of a crystal temple, said Cyndriella. She closed her eyes and recalled her dream. The temple was located at the peak of an ancient volcanic core, she said. It stood proud in a prominent position above another bay within a protected harbour. This is very exciting, I exclaimed. Cyndriella opened her eyes, and a huge smile across her face. She appeared to be simply radiant. In my dreams, she said, I can hear someone's voice. It is a woman's voice, beautiful, as though she is singing to me or calling for me to find her. As we know, all temples with crystal jump rooms use Gaia's crystal energy grid, said Altar. So we can only hope that the crystal energy grid can still be harnessed. Gaia's tectonic plates have now been broken, and it is possible that her crystal grid has also suffered. Maxim looked into Cyndriella's eyes. In which direction do you feel that we should go to find the crystal temple? Cyndriella closed her eyes and seemed to go into a trance. We all waited. Eventually, she pointed in the direction of the temple. That way. I am feeling a strong, energetic pull in that direction. It isn't that far, perhaps on the same coastline that we are now inhabiting. That is northwest, said Maxim, a new level of excitement rising in his voice. We can easily sail there. Most of the volcanic activity has now settled, said Dulkara. The dust cloud has been reduced to a thin veil, and the sun is now able to penetrate the atmosphere. Even in the darkest of night, said Maxim, we can now see the brightest stars glistening in the sky. We all looked up into the sky, as we love to view the Pleiades and other constellations glistening in the indigo abyss. We were surprised, however, to see a new object glowing in the heavens. What is that? Inquired Sarah. We all stood up and peered at the glowing object. Is it a planet? Asked Naishara. Or perhaps it is an asteroid, said Cyndriella. I am not sure, said Dulkara. It could be a star, except that it seems to be getting bigger. Perhaps if we keep watching it over the next few nights, we will discover what it is and why it is here. That is very curious, said Maxim. However, I am sure that all will be revealed. In the meantime, I suggest that tomorrow morning we provision Orca with food and fresh water and venture out into the ocean once more to discover the crystal temple. We cautiously steered Orca out of the bay and set sail for the north. The winds were baited, there was a light southeasterly breeze, and hugging the coastline, we scanned the islands and protruding headlands for any signs of life. On several occasions, when the ocean was calm, We anchored and walked to the deserted shorelines. At night, we could hear animals rustling in the undergrowth, so we knew that many creatures had survived. After a few days, we encountered a gentle current of water that merged with the ocean and seemed to be exiting from an estuary. The estuary was obscured by 2 tall rock formations, and feeling curious, we sailed in between them. "Oh my!" I declared. "Isn't this beautiful?" To our surprise, the entrance led us into a large concealed bay that was well protected from the swell of the ocean. In Earth's future, this bay is called Whangaroa Harbour, and it is positioned at the top of the North Island of New Zealand. A huge waterfall fell from the top of the headlands. There were tall, protruding, upright rocks, or sea stacks, jutting out from the sides of the hills, and massive ancient Cody trees with trunks that were 30 meters in diameter. And then our eyes fell on the domed volcanic core. "There it is!" squealed Samira. Cyndriella laughed, her eyes twinkling, and we all hugged her and exclaimed with delight. Maxim steered Orca down the west arm of the inlet, past a small island, and into a bay in the shape of a cove. The shoreline was flanked with dense subtropical forests, and the volcanic core rose up out of them and reached into the heavens. We tied Orca onto a gnarled ancient tree and began climbing up a pathway that meandered through the trees. The roots of the trees were formed into steps that led us up the volcanic core. "This looks like an ancient pathway," said Naishara. "It certainly does have a beautiful feel about it," I replied. The view as we climbed the mountain was simply stunning, and we could clearly see the groups of islands scattered around the coastline. Our anticipation grew of finding survivors after the devastation. As we witnessed more and more abundant bird life, our expectations heightened with renewed hope until, eventually, we reached the summit. We looked up into the sky as the sun was setting and could see the object, now even larger, shining in the heavens. "Isn't it interesting that we can only see this new object in the evening?" said Sarah. "It must be reflecting the sun's light." "I can now see several craft hovering around the planet," said Naishara. "Do you think that the craft are towing it here?" "I am not sure," said Dulkara. "I am feeling, however, that as it gets closer, the weather patterns are beginning to change. It has been calm over the last few weeks, and now the oceans are becoming rough and unstable." "Hello, I have been expecting you," said a gentle voice that seemed to envelop us in a cocoon of love. "My name is Irama, and I am the High Priestess of the Crystal Temple." This was the best greeting that we could have hoped for after many months of no communication with any other souls. Irama had long black hair, streaked with copper highlights that glistened in the setting sun. She was slim and feminine, with high cheekbones, penetrating brown eyes, and smooth, copper-toned skin. She was wearing a tightly woven, full-length gown, crafted from the leaves of the native flax bush, and was adorned with golden jewellery, an arm bracelet, earrings, and ornate rings, all set with intricately carved jade stones. Irama's gown had a plunging neckline and was dyed in deep purple tones from the berries of the native trees. Her headdress sat up high on top of her head, in the same woven fabric as her gown, and she was wearing a woven detachable collar. The collar was embellished with jade beads and power pearls that cascaded down and sat on her glowing skin. She had a strong, alive, and vibrant disposition, while her outer appearance was elegant and tranquil. I have been watching over you since your arrival several months ago, continued Irama. I have been communicating with you, Cyndriella, appearing to you in your dreams. Oh, said Cyndriella, so it was you. This is why it did not feel right to settle on Rapa Nui, said Maxim. Irama smiled warmly. Please, follow me. She turned, and we followed her up a fork in the pathway that led to a magnificent crystal temple. The temple was camouflaged by upright rocks and tropical vegetation, and created from crystals. It was a similar construction to the temple in Babylon. We all sat together, enjoying light refreshments, and shared our journey so far with Irama. After some time, however, our conversation turned solemn. I am sensing a level of foreboding, said Maxim. I feel that there is more devastation to come. Irama nodded slowly. Yes, you are right. All is not yet over. I know that Gaia has been destabilized, said Maxim, and the polarity of the magnetosphere has been reversed. The rotating axis of Gaia herself has also shifted, and so she has undergone catastrophic changes. I am concerned, however, that Gaia is not out of danger, and these ongoing changes may cause her to perish. Irama nodded in agreement. I can share this with you, she said softly. The M45 Pleiadian Council have devised a plan to stabilize Gaia. If Gaia is not stabilized, she will self-destruct. Yes, said Sarah, we can all feel her instability. The entire solar system is also at risk, said Irama. Many planets and moons have been thrust into new locations and forced to change their orbital rotation around the Sun. Mercury, for example, has been thrown so close to the Sun that the civilizations there have perished. In addition, said Altar, the off-planet Dark Ones, who do not have a home planet of their own, have sought refuge on Gaia. They are living in subterranean caverns and intend to create more havoc. If you will allow me, said Irama, I will show you, with crystal technology, the catastrophic events that will soon come to pass. This is possible because the crystal technology is a portal. Well, it is comforting to know that your crystal technology is still operational, said Altar. Many crystal generators have been destroyed as a result of the devastation from Tiamat's destruction, said Irama. Most of the zero-point energy generators and crystals used in jump rooms have unfortunately blown up. Of course, this crystal technology was also used to stabilize fluctuations in Gaia's magnetosphere. The crystals stabilize the tectonic plate movements, as well as storms and the path of cyclones. Now that they have been destroyed, however, the natural weather patterns can be greatly influenced by the unstable collective unconscious mind of humanity. Do you mean that humanity's instability affects Gaia's weather patterns? Asked Samira. Yes, said Irama. Humanity does not understand the power of their thoughts. Well, every species has a collective unconscious mind, said Altar. The collective unconscious mind represents an entire civilization or race and is so much more powerful than each individual component. I nodded in agreement. The collective unconscious mind of, say, the Taigetan Pleiadians is positive because everyone shares the same loving agreements. They can, therefore, manifest positive experiences. However, in the case of third density humanity, the collective unconscious mind has been so mind-controlled and is so diverse with so many beliefs, fear, and negativity that what it creates can be harmful. The Dark Ones only need to implant ideas into a population, agreed Naishara, often through the collective hive mind consciousness, and they can create a new race to exploit. And, added Sarah, it is important to remember that all information in Earth's future, all of it, has been modified and distorted. No stone has been left unturned. All religions, education, health, astronomy, everything is a lie. Irama got up from her seated position and, working the crystals in the room, she opened a vortex or wormhole right in front of us. We all sat watching the images at the other end of the vortex, and as we looked down this timeline into Gaia's future, our hearts beat wildly in our chests. As a result of Tiamat's destruction, the M45 Pleiadian military forces had suffered a huge loss of life, and 75% of their starships were lost. The Dark Ones also had a massive loss of life and ships, and everyone felt wounded. The water on Tiamat had poured onto many other planets in our solar system, not only Gaia, so that many planets experienced flooding. The remains of Tiamat, being rocks, metal, minerals, dust particles, and so on, had been flung out into the solar system. Some of the remains had been pulled into the centrifugal force of Saturn and had formed her rings, while others had become the asteroid belt. The inner limit of the asteroid belt, called the Van Allen belt, represented the outer periphery of Earth's magnetosphere. The Van Allen belt emits a complex ionizing range of radioactive frequencies that is deadly to biology, said Irama. This mass of radioactive debris will fry any biology below the 5th density who attempt to pass through it. Does that mean that we cannot now leave Gaia? Inquired Samira. The Van Allen belt is 3rd density, said Irama. It is only possible to pass through the Van Allen belt if a biology is 5th density or more, because they are a higher frequency. A 5th density being can also use a jump room to get past the Van Allen belt, or they can timeline jump out. I am now understanding why no rockets containing biology created by NASA in Earth's future have ever ventured very far from Earth, I said, and why the monkeys in the Russian craft did not survive their space journeys. They could not move beyond the Van Allen belt. The NASA moon landings never happened, said Maxim. They were a fabrication by the Americans during the Cold War to convince the masses that the US had technological superiority. Oh, well, they have been to the moon, said Altar, but not in the craft or with the technology that they claim got them there. The moon landing was a staged production. In 3rd density Earth, however, continued Irama, once a soul comes through the Van Allen belt, they forget who they are and why they have come here. These frequencies cut off their human connection to Prime Creator, and they lose all knowledge of their other timelines and their connection to the higher frequency versions of themselves. Said Maxim, and they can then become susceptible to the Dark One's agenda. Yes, agreed Irama. The Van Allen belt also prevents the human biology from remembering their astral travelling at night and the conversations that they have with higher frequency versions of themselves. So this is why humanity has amnesia, said Samira. When an individual experiences forgetfulness about who they really are, said Maxim, this makes their 3rd density experience seem real. As we continued to watch the images at the end of the vortex, we saw the M45 Pleiadian Council and the Federation bringing a damaged biosphere into the orbit of Gaia. Oh, is that the object that we have been seeing in the sky? Asked Naishara. Yes, it is, confirmed Irama. It is a biosphere that once belonged to the Andromedans. It was damaged by a similar detonation as Tiamat, so it had been uninhabited for some time. In Earth's future, it is called the Moon. Of course, exclaimed Sarah. We are seeing the Moon being towed into Gaia's orbit. How can a starship possibly move a biosphere of such a colossal size? Asked Cyndriella. It is very simple, replied Dolkara. The 2 starships that are towing the biosphere are, 800,000 kilometers in width. They use tractor beam technology that is powered by zero-point energy generators. A tractor beam can be viewed as zero-point energy in reverse, said Altar, and has the potential to move any object of any size. And also, the biosphere is already suspended in space and is in a harmonic balance with the surrounding energy dynamics. Yes, said Irama, And as you are probably also aware, the energy from the moon is already changing Gaia's weather patterns. "We had noticed," said Dulkara. "I don't understand," said Samira. "If the biosphere is damaged, what can it possibly do?" "It has a dual purpose," said Irama. "Firstly, inside the biosphere there are 12 huge zero-point energy generators. The generators are set up as a frequency modulation to counter the destructive harmonics that Gaia is experiencing. They will lower the frequency of Gaia from a 5th density to a 3rd density planet." "Ah, so that is how Gaia became 3rd density," said Samira. "But why would the M45 Pleiadian Council want to lower Gaia's density?" "Well, if Gaia's frequency is lowered, her mass will become heavier," said Altar, "and this will help to stabilize her and the other planets in our solar system." "The second reason," said Irama, "is to use the generators to trap the Dark Ones on Gaia and prevent them from invading the rest of the galaxy." "How will the generators trap them on Earth?" inquired Samira. "The Dark Ones have lost their technology and have no interstellar capability," said Irama. "The Van Allen belt, as well as the 3rd density frequency of the generators in the moon, referred to as the Lunar Matrix, will prevent the Dark Ones from leaving this planet. The Federation hope that by trapping the Dark Ones on Gaia, they will be prevented from marauding other planets and begin the process of spiritually ascending." "Of course," said Naishara, "it also lowers the frequency of the civilizations on Gaia, as well as affecting the plants and the animals." "Does that mean that the Dark One's frequency is also lowered to 3rd density?" asked Samira. "Everything is a frequency match," said Altar. "The Dark Ones do not have a particularly high frequency. They are 4th and low 5th density, so they can operate on their frequency within the Lunar Matrix and feed off the lower frequencies that they are mind controlling." We turned our attention back to the vortex. As the moon was towed closer to Gaia, because of its incredible gravitational pull, this created even more tectonic plate movements. In addition, Gaia's seas and oceans, which were now a considerably larger mass due to the flood from Tiamat, were pulled across into the moon's energy field. We saw a massive tidal wave, 6 miles in height, over to the side of the Earth where the moon was now located. We all watched in disbelief as this massive wave was drawn up into unbelievable heights and swept over what was left of Atlantis. The city of Babylon, Appalachia, and other whole cities and civilizations were all destroyed. Some of the individuals who had survived the destruction of Tiamat managed to get to spaceports and escape to other planets. However, not everyone had spaceships. The destruction of Tiamat and the tidal wave that was created by the moon are considered to be one of Gaia's many global resets. We saw the giant Cody trees in the Bay of Islands swamped by water and flattened to the ground. The tidal wave also caused deep fissures in the earth. The Grand Canyon, for example, was formed by catastrophic flooding when the moon was towed into the solar system. In Earth's future, anthropologists, with the use of carbon dating, say that this destruction was the result of a flash ice age that lasted for 200 years. However, this is not correct. We all gasped, and some of us wept as we watched the future timeline unfolding before our eyes. So now Earth has experienced 2 major floods, said Irama. However, the floods were not experienced at the same time. In the creation story, which was written by the Dark Ones, the reference to taking 6 days to make the earth, and on the 7th day God rested, refers to the moon creating a huge flood that lasted for 6 days. So, first Gaia experienced tilting and floods from the destruction of Tiamat, and sometime later, the Earth experienced catastrophic flooding from the moon being towed into the energy dynamic of Earth. I am wondering, said Cyndriella, is Gaia the name of this 5th density planet, and yet, as a 3rd density planet, she is called Earth? That is right, said Irama. And did the Dark Ones refrain from their marauding and aggressive behavior? Asked Cyndriella. Irama worked the crystals once more, and as the images continued to reveal themselves, we saw that the Dark Ones had only grown stronger. The Dark Ones figured out that they were being trapped on Earth. However, they found Earth very comfortable. Gaia was now a watery planet with subterranean environments and a self-sustaining, fear-based humanoid consciousness that was also a food source to sustain their biology. In this way, the Dark Ones took over the moon's lunar frequency for their own purposes. We all sat in silence, and holding each other's hands, we generated love and a higher vibration as we absorbed the images that had been revealed in the vortex. Cyndriella was the first to break the silence. If the tidal wave from the moon has destroyed most of the civilizations, where did this new humanoid race come from? She asked. There were, of course, some survivors, said Maxim. The Atlantean Lyrian survivors were the first humanoid race to inhabit Gaia after this reset. They had already been mind-controlled in Atlantis, therefore it was easy for the Dark Ones to continue with their agenda. I suppose, said Sarah, as a 3rd density being, the humanoid biology could now be inhabited by many other lower frequency races. Yes, said Irama. The Atlantean Lyrian survivors were low 5th density, however, they were mind-controlled and this changed their DNA. Now, however, with the Van Allen belt and the Lunar Matrix, their frequency has been lowered even further to 3rd density. The 3rd density human biology is now compatible with countless extraterrestrial races, both positive and negative, who can incarnate onto Earth. In other words, I said, in Earth's future, there is a full-scale invasion of many different species who are masquerading as human beings. Yes, well, third density is the lowest density that a humanoid can experience, said Altar. Does that mean that the third density human is no longer a primary race? Asked Cyndriella. The universe does not tie a soul to a race, said Naishara. It is the nature of a soul to jump from one race to another. However, interjected Altar, a primary race is created with the intention focus awareness of the original source or prime creator. A secondary race, on the other hand, is a race that was created using mind control so that they can be exploited. The Lurian race and its variants are primary races. However, now that they are limited to third density, they are classified as a secondary race. I do not think that third density humanity can be considered as a race, said Maxim. The third density human biology has been designed so that many different races can inhabit the biology. In this way, it is a designer race. Every soul in third density has different requirements depending upon the species that they belong to or have originated from, and these requirements can be very different. Well, regardless of who is inhabiting the biology, said Sarah, the third density civilization is based in fear. That is right, said Irama. The Dark Ones have to keep the human biology in fear so that they do not revert back to their original DNA. Third density humanity is mind-controlled to always be lurching from one war to another, from one scarcity to another, from one catastrophe to another. There will never be an end to conflict, judgment, discrimination, hate, division, and all of the fighting that accompanies it, as this is how the Dark Ones lower the frequency of human DNA and is the purpose of the 3D matrix. Suffering. In this way, the Dark Ones have succeeded in their plan to hijack the living library. And how exactly does the Lunar Matrix work when it is targeted towards humanity? Asked Samira. The third density human biology is designed to play out the limiting beliefs and programs that were inherited by its parents and society, explained Irama. Unfortunately, most third density children do not experience a loving, caring environment. At the very least, the false beliefs that they are fed are simply for the purpose of mind control. The Lunar Matrix generators then emit a frequency range that amplifies or mirrors a human being's frequency back to them. So, the Lunar Matrix has a consciousness? Asked Cyndriella. Not really, replied Irama. The Lunar Matrix does not have consciousness or intelligence in that way. It is impartial and does not judge. Rather, it is a transmitter of frequencies. It is not synthetic intelligence either. It is a frequency generator or a replicator. It is digital technology based on data. Ah, I see, said Cyndriella. The Lunar Matrix can tailor-make a reality for each human designed on their emotional experiences. It is a matrix designed to get a response, and if a human being has not done their inner work or integrated their fear, their response is always the same, and this keeps them in third density. Exactly, said Irama. For example, if a human being has a pattern involving the misuse of sexual energy, when the lunar matrix interacts with that energy, it matches or tailor-makes an experience for that human. It brings the people and the situation who will misuse their sexual energy. It is aware of everyone on the planet, and whatever an individual emits, the lunar matrix creates the opportunity for that frequency to be experienced. So, if a human being is unconscious as a result of their beliefs, added Sarah, the lunar matrix will hold them in a low frequency and maintain the illusion of the third density until they wake up. Irama nodded in agreement. Furthermore, if a human being is third density, when that individual dies, the lunar matrix traps their consciousness inside the Van Allen belt. That is right, said Maxim. When an individual dies as a third density human, the only thing that they are leaving behind is their biological body. Therefore, a soul that has not raised its consciousness beyond third density is trapped within the lunar matrix frequency. Some spiritual teachings tell humanity to follow a white light when they die, I said, and that white light will take them to Prime Creator. This, however, is a trick. The white light takes a soul to the dark ones in fourth density on the moon. Yes, it certainly does, agreed Altar. And once there, the dark ones can show a person a movie of their life because it is recorded on a complex digital computer as on the moon. Synthetic intelligence and the digital technology on the moon records everything so that the soul can have playbacks of their lives. Do they actually go to the moon? Said Samira. They do not actually go to the moon, continued Altar, as their consciousness is trapped inside the Van Allen belt, or held in the electromagnetic third density frequencies. Oh, that is clever, said Samira. After seeing this movie of their life, they can be persuaded to feel guilty for their behavior and of their own volition return into the reincarnational cycle to be used as slaves and food for the Dark Ones once again. So it is a prison planet, said Cyndriella. Well, began Sarah, when an individual raises their frequency to fifth density, thereby raising themselves above the frequency of the Van Allen belt and the lunar matrix, they can go straight out and beyond the third density matrix after death. They can go into fifth density plus. The only thing that limits the human being, said Dulkara, is the notion that they are limited. As they live out their limitations under the law of attraction, or the law of mirrors, they will attract to themselves one limiting experience after the other. So, what is the difference between the law of attraction and the law of mirrors? Said Cyndriella. The universal law of attraction, said Maxim, means whatever frequencies an object or person vibrates at, they attract experiences that vibrate at the same frequency. An example could be when we use a jump room. We create the frequency of our destination and go there. The law of mirrors is essentially the same thing, however, refers to an individual's personal frequencies that are mirrored back to them so that they can experience their personal or collective beliefs. In third density, it is suffering through mind control that is mirrored back to them. Yes, I agreed. How a human being perceives or interprets the world, the beliefs that they hold on to, and the emotions that are trapped inside their body is how they create their own reality. Their reality is based on where they place their focused attention awareness. It is one thing for an individual to act as though they do not have any issues, said Naishara, but it is another thing to know what is hidden in their shadows. The only way to find out what is hidden from us is to go within. Of course, I added, it doesn't take long for beliefs and patterns to break through the act or outer persona and become evident to other people. The trick is to understand what we are doing, saying, and believing ourselves. And the ego does a really good job of keeping us in denial by editing and eliminating our perceptions of ourselves and rewriting history. Unfortunately, said Sarah, Prime Creator cannot experience itself through the biology when the ego is in control, because the ego is the non-authentic part of an individual. When the ego is in control, we cannot experience love. That is right, I said. Prime Creator is love and creates what is not love, or contrast, so that we can create the desire, and with that commitment to integrate our pain and experience love. Everything in the universe is consciousness, and therefore is Prime Creator, said Sarah. So it is important to accept all of creation, whether it is perceived as good or bad, right or wrong, as the Creator. I always remind myself, interjected Naishara, that when we encounter someone who is difficult or challenging, and we help them by offering love and compassion, we are helping another aspect of ourselves on another timeline. Everything in our outer world is a reflection of the beliefs in our inner world that we have not dealt with. Third density is designed to draw people into a drama, I said. We need to hold the highest version of ourselves in our minds, and knowing who we are, create our own happiness. I am curious, said Samira. If a starseed is a higher vibration than its mother, when it is in utero, how can the mother's lower frequency biology carry that higher frequency through pregnancy? Well, that is an interesting question, I said. The mother is abducted. The mother's body is prepared to be able to support a baby who enters with a soul energy or voltage that is greater than their own. What do you mean, abducted? Said Samira. It would be a procedure, I continued, in a gentle way, in the astral. Usually, the mother is taken via a tractor beam onto a starship and placed into a medical pod where her DNA frequency is artificially raised. This, of course, is only temporary because her consciousness has not changed and her DNA will revert back to its former status over a short period of time. However, the artificially raised frequencies are a frequency match for the incoming starseed. And in this case, the mother usually has no conscious recall of the experience. It can take up to several months in a medical pod. However, after the procedure, the mother can be returned back to where she was taken, arriving there only minutes or a few hours after being extracted. Oh, so it is similar to a timeline jump, replied Samira. Exactly, said Naishara. And after the birth, the mother's energy returns to the lower frequency. However, said Altar, it is comforting to know, no matter what the frequency, that all strands of DNA and 24 pairs of chromosomes are present and correct in third density humanity. Absolutely, said Naishara. Every human being has everything within themselves to awaken and activate their DNA. Unfortunately, said Maxim, humanity do not understand that they are not victims. Everything that is good and bad in their lives, they are the ones who are creating it. And often, the villains in their lives are not real people. They are a reflection of their subconscious that is materializing in their outside world. The villains in their lives can be their own egregores. And if the lunar frequency was switched off, said Irama, the matrix would revert back to a fifth density matrix. It would only take humanity a few years to raise their frequency to fifth density. Yes, agreed Dulkara. However, if the lunar matrix was switched off, humanity would also be able to see all of the non-physical and aggressive creatures in the fourth density that also feed off human fear. This would be terrifying for humanity and would create even more confusion and fear. Can't the Charistus help? Pleaded Samira. She turned to face me and looked into my eyes. Samira, you know that if a species, even accidentally, developed a level of anger, and that anger became so powerful that in a rage they would take someone else's life, the Charistus would step in and mentor that species into a higher understanding of love, compassion, empathy, and a tolerance for differences. I shook my head in sorrow. I wish we could ask them for help. However, with universal law, no one has a right to limit or impede another's free will, or even with a higher consciousness, impose their way or the right way. How do we come here, forget who we are, and find our way back to Prime Creator? This is the challenge. If the Charistus stepped in from the outside, added Naishara, it would be perceived as interference because they would be imposing their will, and that does not honor the free will of the species that the Dark Ones are persecuting. Instead, they are dealing with it in their own way through integration by sending a high number of starseeds onto Earth through incarnation, and that is who we are. Yes, and many of those starseeds are asleep, aren't they, Naishara? Added Samira. Well, that is their learning, replied Naishara. The awake Ador Christus know who they are and can move into an avatar to teach and share. We are the way showers. The Dor Charistus who incarnate carry all experiences in their DNA, added Sarah, and take on the avatar's experience in whatever civilization they incarnate into. The Dorcaristas have incarnated into humanity to at least keep the frequency of understanding in the group unconscious mind so that the civilization does not get lost. With the universal non-interference law inside the Matrix, added Dorca, the problems that are contained on Earth are to be resolved on Earth. We all sat in silence, once again, reflecting on our conversation and feeling into the situation that we had now found ourselves within. It was now almost sunrise, and the ocean below us was sparkling in the morning light. "When can we timeline jump to Atlantis?" said Maxim, looking into Irama's eyes. "We would like to see if we can find any survivors." "I am sorry, Maxim," said Irama. "This is too dangerous. It is too late. If you return to Atlantis on this timeline, you will perish also. The crystal temple in Babylon will soon be destroyed by the Lunar Matrix tidal waves." "What I suggest," said Irama, "is that we timeline jump to the Temple of Thebes on the Nile. The Temple of Thebes is over 2,000 miles away from Babylon, and I sense that it is safe for us to journey there. The Temple of Thebes is the only temple that will survive the Lunar Matrix tidal wave." "What timeline are we jumping to?" asked Cyndriella. "I would like to place you 2,000 years before the birth of the fabled Christ," said Irama. "It is imperative that we insert a change there." "Why there?" inquired Sarah. "What is happening there at that time?" "This is an important time for Gaia," said Irama. "The Dark Ones have tightened their grip. Pre-dynastic Egypt has gone, and the dynastic kings and pharaohs are demonstrating extreme behavior. They are very controlling." "This is all very well, but how do we find the right timeline for the Temple of Thebes?" inquired Dorca. "The timelines are now broken, and this could prove to be difficult." "We do not have AI computers," said Irama, "so we cannot work out the quantum calculations to find the exact frequency. Crystal technology does not have that kind of computing capacity, but it does hold exact frequencies." "Ah, yes," said Altar excitedly. "Everything is energy, therefore the only difference from one location to another is its frequency. The frequency of a location is a combination of the objects and the people who are living there and the events that are taking place. I am sure there will be other aspects of ourselves living at the Temple of Thebes. It won't be so difficult to find the frequency of other versions of ourselves who are living there." "Exactly," said Irama. "The frequencies of your other lives are held in the crystals, and when you are living in powerful places, like the Temple of Thebes, we can calculate, with certainty, your destination and its respective time value." I closed my eyes and allowed my mind to journey into the future. "I can see the other versions of ourselves living near the Temple of Thebes," I said, "and I can see another beautiful dhow boat, or canoe, on a river not far from the temple." "All right," said Maxim, rubbing his hands together. "We will go to the Temple of Thebes." We looked around the room at one another, and our eyes blazing with excitement, our hearts pounding with the promise of another adventure together, we all smiled. And so, my journey continues.